Hello and welcome to another episode of To Be Honest, a show with a clown, a duck, and a degenerate. Today we're going to go into depth on all things MrBeast. I think at this point there have been well over 10,000 videos made about him that all allege one thing or another. We didn't watch them all, but we did just watch the interview MrBeast did with Oompaville yesterday, and also the Soggy Biscuit video that came out last week. What's his real name? Is it Soggy Biscuit?
Yeah. Let's just go with Soggy Biscuit. It was Soggy Cereal.
You're talking about all the MrBeast videos that have been made on him. I just love reading out the more Pegasus titles. He got caught. It's done. He's over.
Yeah, just regurgitating the same information over and over again in these fucking videos. It's never over.
I noticed this with YouTubers. I do it myself. Like, if you get a video that's a banger, you try to catch lightning in a bottle twice, so you'll do anything you can to replicate a similar format. But I remember with Pegasus, all he literally did is just like flip the face of MrBeast. So it was the exact same picture.
In a bottle about 20 fucking times.
I think the reason why like 99% of these videos made about MrBeast are so negative is these sorts of videos get a lot of views, and they get a lot of views because this is both the safe opinion to have and also the most lucrative opinion to have. I think MrBeast is not just the biggest creator on the platform, he's also seen as like the good guy of YouTube, Mr. Charity. And there is far more financial gain to be had in going after someone like that over someone with an already highly established negative reputation. So making a video about someone that everyone already knows is a piece of shit seems to be far less lucrative than going after someone who isn't thought to be a piece of shit yet, like Pyro, for example. Do you guys agree with that?
Well, I think it's more just because, like, well, yeah, you said it yourself. Like, he's like the good boy of YouTube, like Golden Boy. It's like how you had who was it? Ethan Klein, maybe.
Just like to go back with the leafy stuff.
Yeah, like he was basically seen as like the person who you respected his opinions and stuff like that, like the outspoken person, like, you know, years ago. But yeah, MrBeast is basically, I see people like meme on him on Twitter, like they'll show a picture of his face in a thumbnail and just say it doesn't even look human. But like, yeah, this is the first instance.
Gets 200,000 likes.
Yeah. And this is the first instance we've had of him like really being in like hot water and stuff.
Well, from what I've seen, MrBeast, obviously he's definitely fucked up in some areas. Some things are worthy of criticism for sure. Like the crypto, for example. I don't know much about crypto, but it seems like he's definitely fucked up a bit there. I think CoffeeZilla came out with a video just yesterday, and there's definitely some fuck ups in that. But overall, I think he's like innocent of 99% of all the things he's been accused of. I know that's a massive number, but I think that's pretty accurate. I think this transcended just standard criticism quite a long time ago. I mean, just the sheer amount of disinformation that's out there is pretty insane.
Yeah, there was
I would call it a pretty malicious smear campaign against him. I mean, that's the only way to say it. And people keep using this word misinformation. I think Oompaville even did with his interview on him the other day to describe what's out there. I mean, it's not misinformation, it's disinformation, it's deliberate slander that's out there. Go on.
I was going to say, well, that's what I'm trying to thought. I have dementia.
Yeah.
I actually forgot.
Old,
yeah.
He's getting older.
The Crohn's is actually setting in.
Well, in the rare cases where someone has defended MrBeast or simply pointed out the falsehoods, I mean, this is the other side of it. When they've pointed out the lies, they've been met with this outright censorship or just been labeled a MrBeast glazer. This is the new Zoomer word, I guess.
I had that a lot with my slop videos.
You got called a glazer in your slop video that you made?
Yeah, because I try and be as neutral as possible, but if I even leaned slightly towards, you know, just like saying, oh, MrBeast.
Saying something positive?
Like, not even positive, just, you know, not outright negative. People will be like,
right, okay.
Hop off
literally to that extent.
And it's just like, you know, and then a lot of people will just comment like, I don't even care. I just don't trust MrBeast at the end of the day. Like,
not give a reason why, not explain why, not cite a reason or give an example.
Oh, well, just because he's like a rich, like most popular YouTube, and they believe that it's hard to get that big without being
I remember
morally
him saying
correct.
In Oompaville's video, he was saying how he reached out to people privately with proof to, you know, disprove some of the stuff against him. And he said himself, which I do believe, like, yeah, I mean, it could be true, but unfortunately it's not cool to defend you right now. Like, they definitely wouldn't have worded it like that.
People actually said that to his face. It's crazy.
The hate boner against him was, like, so big. You could just lie about stuff. I mean, one that I always keep thinking of is there was this thing going around that Carl Jacobs got arrested for having, like, CP.
Yep.
And it's like, it was just completely disproven. And then the guy on TikTok who started the story, he literally came out and said it was an inside joke gone too far. It's like, what the fuck do you mean inside joke? Like, you were literally reporting on it like it was. And then the worst thing is all the actual news articles started covering it, and they would just cite this one fucking 100 follower Andy on TikTok, you know, almost to cover their own ass. They could put it in like a title and stuff like that, but it's like, oh, we didn't say it. It's this guy on TikTok.
I saw some tweet like 60,000 likes just being like, yeah, Carl just got arrested for having CP on his computer. And it's like, what?
Just completely fabricated out of absolutely nowhere. I would love to know the creators that MrBeast reached out to. I would love to know their names. I would love for MrBeast to disclose that. Well, he was saying stuff like, well, this is not true. Here's the proof it's not true, and like literally showing them the proof. And then those creators told him effectively to fuck off, saying, yeah, I don't really care. It's not safe to defend you right now. I think MrBeast used the terminology cool. It's not cool to defend you right now. So I don't really care whether it's true or not, or what you're showing me. I'm just going to continue to make these videos, and I'm not going to defend you in the slightest. I mean that is fucked.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when the hate bandwagon gets so big. I mean, most of the biggest videos against him that aren't from Dogpack, unironically, are just people recapping Dogpack's information and stuff. Like, even I was just watching the videos on stream and stuff, and it's just like, you know, you're spreading the narrative more and more that like what this person is saying is true. And to be fair, like when I watched the Dogpack stuff originally, I was like, wow, this is like really, really bad. But then obviously there's been a lot more that's came out since. MrBeast got interviewed by Oompaville. Soggy obviously did that video as well. I still think, personally, even if a lot of it has been disproven, not all of it has, but also I think, like, I really don't... I mean, I do understand, but I don't like the fact that MrBeast didn't respond straight away. Because he said in the Oompaville video, like, I don't want to be sat there doing a response video, like, looking at a camera. It's not my thing. And it's like, yeah, it's nobody's fucking thing, but it's kind of important. I swear it's, like, one of the reasons why he went through the way of, like, you know, spreading the information through the back end, I guess, like, you know, other YouTubers doing videos and stuff like that, is probably because I'm assuming that if he talked about this on camera, there would be a huge chunk of the internet that had no idea about this drama that then would be, you know, that would know about it, and it probably hurt like brands and stuff like that. So, because if you think about it, like, the internet in general, I think, has kind of moved on from the MrBeast stuff. It's just like the whole commentary scene that hasn't, because a lot of people can still make money from that area.
I don't think that's true. I mean, if you look at the replies to MrBeast tweets, I mean, he's been replying to certain people, like, there are still several replies, so it's still out there, it's still an ongoing thing, and it's not just commentary YouTubers. But regarding whether MrBeast should have responded sooner, which we were about to get into, I mean, obviously, I think MrBeast should have done some measure of response sooner, but he does explain why. I mean, he admitted in the interview he does regret not saying something sooner. In fact, I think he cited that as his greatest regret. Bit of context, I mean, MrBeast hired this big, expensive law firm. Don't ask me to remember the name off the top of my head, but it's a very, very reputable law firm, good credentials. They launched an external investigation into MrBeast's company to find any evidence of wrongdoing. I mean, and that was another false claim that was debunked. They accused MrBeast that he'd hired a law firm specifically to find him innocent of wrongdoing. And that is not true, because it was not an internal investigation, it was an external one. I mean, I'm sure MrBeast paid out a lot of money over the course of I believe it was like 3 months he spent investigating this company.
Forever.
But yeah, even if it was like millions of dollars, which it probably was, let's face it, they're not about to sacrifice their reputation for it, I reckon. But in any case, this is why MrBeast could not initially respond to some of these allegations at the time. They'd specifically asked him not to engage in drama until this investigation concluded, and MrBeast chose to abide by that. And I mean, quite rightly so. Don't you think that's fair enough? I think he was going to release evidence that they had told him to do that, like physical proof that he'd been told not to say anything. I think it might even be in Oompaville's description. I couldn't see it there when I quickly browsed through it.
Some of the evidence is like kind of flimsy. You know, it's like, here's evidence, and then it's just a website link. But I mean, it was better than nothing.
It was better than nothing.
With what you were saying, I did see a lot of memes on Twitter when he first posted it, being like, investigated myself and found myself innocent, which was kind of funny. But yeah, it wasn't just like that. And then the other point they were trying to say is that the law firm was the same law firm that's been used by Johnny Depp and Harvey Weinstein before, but, you know, trying to say that, like, guilty people have used this law firm to get them off their back. But reality is, it's just like the biggest law firm that all celebrities use. So it wasn't really a good point to use that, oh, he's guilty because same lawyers. It's like, it's just, that's LA.
Yeah, I mean, for that reason, I think it's a perfectly acceptable reason to not want to speak on that sooner. If you're told by a huge law firm not to, then you've got to abide by that. What I think was weak in MrBeast's case was when he said, well, I started making a response video, but I felt it was kind of cringe. It felt weird, so I didn't go through with it. I mean, that's not a good reason. Not a particularly good reason to make
it's
one.
cringe.
I mean,
I'm not going to defend myself.
Pyro is someone who's made a response video. Yeah, it's hard to do. You don't enjoy doing it. It's not about enjoying it. It's about having to do that to destroy most of these rumors and debunk these serious allegations.
Yeah, when he said it's not my thing, I did kind of do a bit of a nose exhale because I was like,
It's kind of like, you don't get a choice.
No one's. It's no one's
Actually, that's
thing.
my thing. I love doing
I remember
that.
he said, like, I don't know whether this is verbatim, but he said, like, doing a response, sitting down, it's not my thing. I like to kind of more just, like, sit down and talk like we're doing now. And it's like, yeah, no shit.
I much prefer not being accused of multiple crimes. Oh, really? Who would have thought?
Yeah, there's actually an article that's came out saying Oompaville, and he said this himself. He said he was very concerned with his video game. That was his number one priority. And he spent more time in Unity, the game engine, that day than I did writing questions for a MrBeast interview, which is kind of embarrassing.
To be fair, he only had, like a day or less to prepare all the questions, so it's kind of like...
Yeah, because he jetted off, right, in his, like, private jet over to basically be interviewed. I do like how he was meant to be interviewed by Pegasus originally. Could you imagine how that could have gone?
That was an interesting thing, because a lot of people were saying Oompa was too soft, which he was. But, they were trying to say that, like, MrBeast perfectly picked him out as the guy who won't push back, and it was all calculated. But then he was going to do an interview with more Pegasus, but he wanted to do it in person, and Pegasus apparently didn't want to. So it's kind of like he was going to do an interview with his biggest critic, but it fell through. It's like, I wonder how that would have gone, honestly.
About the same as the Oompaville one, quite frankly. And let's say this about the interview, just try and give a brief synopsis of how it went down, because I think people expected it to not go so well. They were proven right, I guess. But considering like the sheer amount of disinformation that's out there, all the allegations MrBeast has against him, I think MrBeast personally did a really good job of answering the greater percentage of it. I mean, did it get touched on to the extent it should have been? Like, no, absolutely not. Oompaville kind of did a very mediocre job of it. I mean, and that's putting
it was more just, he'd ask the question, he'd get the answer and go, okay, cool, and then move on to the next thing.
It's obviously not an excuse, but he did say, like, he's not an interviewer. Like, I could tell by the disclaimer he was giving in the intro, he was, like, shit scared of how this would be perceived. I mean, I reached out to him and I said, like, I think you're a little bit soft, but to be fair, if I was in his position, I wouldn't have done much a better job, probably a worse job, if anything.
Oompaville does get somewhat dominated in the interview. MrBeast has an answer for pretty much everything. And it's a combination, I feel, of MrBeast having the facts. He's obviously been living with this for the past few months, so he does have a good answer for everything.
Yeah.
And I do feel that Oompaville and his team, because he does mention his team worked on this as well, did not do sufficient enough research and were not able to challenge MrBeast on very much, It sounds the opposite, but I think it would have been to MrBeast's own benefit had Oompa actually managed to challenge some of MrBeast's answers.
Yeah.
For an interview of this scale, all the allegations, all the disinformation that's out there, I reckon, correct me if I'm wrong, you need like 2 to 3 weeks of prep work. I would, certainly, and I didn't have any of this prior information until a few days ago. So you can't just come up with some questions the night before. Like, it's just not possible. Instead of that, like what happened basically every time, Oompa would just ask the question, he'd pre-written beforehand, MrBeast would answer it, and then Oompa would have nothing to say to it, nothing to challenge it. Then he'd just move on to the next question.
Yeah.
I mean, that is indicative of a pretty shit interview.
He did ask about every allegation, but yeah, like you said, there was no pushback or there was no, once MrBeast gave his answer, there wasn't like, oh, but what about this aspect? It was just like, okay.
The only actual pushback, like I said before we recorded, the crypto question at the end.
Right, which was,
it was
voiced basically through CoffeeZilla. And that was CoffeeZilla's voice coming out of Oompaville's mouth. I mean, that is pretty transparent, I would say. So comments claiming that Oompa softballed Mr. Beast, I would say that, yeah, that's 100% true. Yeah. But I think in Oompaville's defense, and this needs to be made clear, it did not come from a place of bias. It was not intentional. There were no nefarious motivations involved there. And people claiming otherwise, because people are claiming otherwise, I mean, that's just completely irrational. I think it's just a simple fact. I think it's just a simple fact that Oompa was not as prepared as he should have been and did not yet have the experience for that interview dynamic. He's too nice at the end of the day. What Mr. Beast needed in this interview, I don't think he will do another interview, but if he had done an interview, he should have done it with a more heavy hitter, a bit of a bastard to hit him with like those hard-hitting questions, to be able to identify the weaknesses in Mr. Beast's responses, and then eventually press him on them. I mean, I believe that that's the main criticism of the interview, judging from what people are saying.
Imagine if you interviewed him.
And that's really 100% fair. Had I interviewed him? So I think Oompaville was probably the right choice at the end of the day, purely due to the fact that he had interviewed Mr. Beast's greatest detractor, Dogpack.
Yeah, and he did the same to him, so it was kind of balanced in that way. You know, he platformed Dogpack and didn't push back on anything Dogpack said either, so it can't... Obviously, not good for both things, but at least it was an even... It wasn't like he was, like, great for Dogpack and then was hard on Mr. Beast, so... Exactly.
So, I mean, if in this theoretical situation, had I interviewed Mr. Beast, yeah, I'm obviously a bit of a bastard. I'm kind of a we'll mute that word because it's not acceptable on YouTube. But yeah, I'm definitely going to hit him with hard-hitting questions. I'm definitely going to interrupt him more. I'm definitely going to push him on these points. And I am going to be a total bastard to him, you know, definitely.
But
I'm going to need, like I said, I'm definitely going to need like 2 to 3 weeks of prep work here, probably even more, because at least Oompaville had some kind of knowledge of this situation, these topics beforehand. So it's a big fucking interview, and I'm definitely going to need to work on that sometime before I even start formulating the questions. What were we saying, Pyro?
I was going to say, I like to imagine he asks you, so like, have you done like any interview work before? You got any experience? And you just link him the line maker.
The line maker, that's it, yeah, pretty much.
Just one pedophile. That would not look good for him at all.
I definitely would have done it. There's no way I'm going to turn it down, right? It would have been very lucrative to my dead channel. But yes, I do think, I mean, it's very easy to say this in hindsight. Yes, I would have done a better job than Oompaville.
A lot of people that I've seen have like basically just said he's been a coward. I don't agree with that, but I do think he could have definitely pushed a little bit more. But yeah, I've spoke to him before, like privately and stuff, and he does genuinely just seem to be a very, you know, a very nice, like non-confrontational person. So yeah, it was really less of an interview, and it was more just platforming.
A platform,
Mr. Beast, yeah.
Which is important, which is so necessary, especially considering this is the first time Mr. Beast has addressed some of this stuff himself, like
probably
in person.
The last.
But those criticisms of the interviewer and the interviewing process are absolutely valid. It's all the other criticisms of the interview that are bollocks, in my opinion. For example,
I like how you're saying the platforming and stuff is good, right? And then I just thought to myself, like, if only Mr. Beast had his own channel where he could have uploaded his own response onto.
Worst decision.
I mean, he should have done that, but we've covered that. We covered why he didn't do that.
Yeah, it'd be like all
in the long run, I think, like brands and stuff.
The 7-year-olds from India are like, what is this? What does this mean? Like, they're not going to know anything.
I did see a comment that Mr. Beast played the legal card too much in response to, like, dodging the questions. So I'm not going to answer this because, for legal reasons, I can't speak on it. I mean, that's a pretty legitimate reason. But more than that, I think he only did that twice.
There was definitely some stuff, because I thought people in my chat were being, like, very cynical about it. And they just thought the entire thing was staged. He saw the questions beforehand. I had a feeling that he saw the questions beforehand. He was shown them. But later on in the video, I actually... later on in the video, I don't think that was true. I'm not sure. Or maybe they ran through it and Oompaville asked something anyway.
Even if that's true, and I don't think it is personally, even if that's true, why does that matter?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
I think he definitely rehearsed every single thing he'd be asked about.
You had one point where they talked about Jake Weddle for a little bit, because that was always like a bit of an elephant in the room. And then I think Oompa mentioned that Mr. Beast reached out to Jake, because that's like one of the few times that he was like, shit, I've actually got to apologize here, I'm fucked. because he reached out to Jake on Twitter. He apologized, offered him like a cash sum. And what was the bit again? I think Jake said like, I'm going to take half of it and still keep making videos on you, something like that.
It was one of the weaker ones because I got MrBeast's point because he has done a solitary confinement video with 2 people before, and they had lights on for the entire like 100 days, and they were fine. And then obviously Jake Weddle did not go well for him, but at the same time he didn't really like take too much responsibility for it, because Oompaville also didn't mention that one of the issues, right, was he was already having issues, and then they made him run on a treadmill and do like a marathon. You know, like there was a lot of negligence in there.
Was it actually a marathon? Does he know how long a marathon is?
Apparently, well, yeah, that's what Weddle said in his video, is that he was made to be put on a treadmill and run for 26 miles. I doubt it was that much, but you know, he still had like...
That's crazy.
He was already deprived of sleep, and they made him run on a treadmill, and then he's filled with, you know, has all these blisters and stuff, and then, you know, it could have been covered a bit better than it was.
I mean, if you're not used to running as a runner, if you're not used to, you can't just do a marathon like that. It's not possible. It's not. I don't think it's physically possible unless you've had some training beforehand.
You could not run
if you
it
walked
or jog it.
Yeah, if you walked it.
Soggy did spend way too much on that, saying it's not actually, you know, he said it's not actually illegal. It's not actually a war crime, but it still didn't change that he still suffered, you know, in the solitary confinement. It didn't really...
Yeah, exactly.
I think we can briefly talk about Soggy Biscuit's video, whatever his name is, because that's been out for a while now.
Isn't Soggy Biscuit is literally, isn't that where you just all nut on a biscuit or something?
It's like a boarding school thing. Not that I did it. I did go to boarding school.
I
never did this.
Colossal invented it.
You just have a biscuit, and like it's a bunch of guys standing around a biscuit and jacking off onto it, and the last person to jack off onto it has to eat it. But yeah, just to speak on the Soggy Biscuit video very briefly. Obviously, he deserves a great deal of credit for being one of the first few people to debunk most of the stuff. Well, he may have even been the first, really, to put this out publicly on YouTube.
To turn the tide.
Is it a perfect video? No. I mean, there are a few mistakes that are made. I'm not going to go into them because it'll take too long. But, like, it's not the best video. It's like a 4 out of 10, I would give it. 4 out of 10
you
for
reckon?
Batman.
I thought it was a bit better.
Nah, I think it's better than that.
It's a 4 out of 10, but it probably gets more points for being, like, the first one out there. But as, like, a video... a commentary video, it's not the best. And even so, you know, this video was really important, and he do deserve the credit for being perhaps the first person to debunk a lot of this slander. But I do feel that the interview MrBeast did with Oompaville is just a much better source of information overall, specifically because it's MrBeast finally addressing it.
The only reason the Soggy video had to even be made is because he wasn't responding. Because, you know, like we said earlier, he was trying to spread the information out in like a more incognito way, I guess. Well, it's not like these people were on payroll or anything, which a lot of people seem to think, but yeah, it's just like this whole situation would have been avoided if he just like basically came out himself and responded to it. I don't think the video was a 4 out of 10 though. I think
I'm always too harsh to other, I rated the Batman 4
you're
out of
literally
10.
just continuing the bit of like everything's the Batman. It's all 4 out of 10.
In all fairness, I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10, just depending on the day.
So you're actually rating that higher than the Batman.
But I think I agree with all of that, and like I said, I do feel, and I do agree with you, that MrBeast should have responded sooner, and he should have made, and still to this day, I still feel he should make a video of his own and not just do an interview with someone. That'll never happen, but I still feel like he should do that. But even
I feel like he could have posted it on Twitter.
Even so, most of the disinformation out there was always very easy to debunk. All of it was publicly available, and I think anyone could have disproved this, you know, if they took the time to do it, as Soggy did. Yeah. But yeah, very few people ever seemed particularly interested in doing that. For whatever reason, they just ran with this negative narrative that has been concocted out of this kind of very self-serving financial gain. And for a long time.
It was the easy thing to do. And I also noticed, you know, after the Soggy video dropped, the channels, all the commentary channels milking the shit out of it, didn't even touch it. They like, you know, it's like as soon as there was positive news from MrBeast, they're like, oh, well, I've done how many videos negatively? I can't just turn around and change the tide. So they just kind of like...
I did
pussyfooted around it.
I haven't seen your video, Pyro, but is it kind of like middle ground, usual slot shit?
It would literally just be recapping the Soggy video.
Okay,
like
so yeah, that definitely doesn't count. Right. Doesn't count then. Yeah. Doesn't count. If you don't have like a real opinion, I don't think it counts.
I just saw quite a few people, because obviously what MrBeast's biggest mistake there was he comments on the video, which he did say.
Yes, that was a mistake. Yeah.
And then going around and sending it to YouTubers, like, one, shouldn't do that in the first place because people were going to find it naturally, but also two, you're just trusting a YouTuber who's going to screenshot it and post it, like quite a few TikTokers did, and it's like it just looks bad. Soggy obviously wasn't happy with it either.
There was a guy on Instagram that came out about that first, and that's why as soon as he reached out to me, I was like, I gotta self-report. I gotta like tell everyone that he's like reached out to me, because I swear, as soon as I saw that DM, I was like, he's definitely sent that to other people. If anyone leaks it, then I'm going to get thrown into some weird conspiracy that I'm on payroll to like save his career or something.
I understood him wanting to get the news out, but it just painted it all negatively. You know, everyone was like, okay, I don't trust Soggy's video now because MrBeast is backing it. It created that thing where if he just left it alone, it would have fallen into the hand. I know he would have been like so happy that there was finally a video that was in his favor that he probably just sent shit without thinking. But yeah, it wasn't the smartest move.
Definitely wasn't the smartest. Yeah, agreed.
One thing he said that I do actually respect as well in the video, that he said, like, you know, he's made mistakes and he will continue to make mistakes in the future. Like, just because he's like owning up to everything now, well, owning up to most of it, he's not gonna, you know, be completely pure of heart like in the future. Like, he probably will make, obviously, hopefully none of this stuff again. But yeah, I think that was kind of a humbling thing to say in a sense. Because, you know, it's like, I'm still going to fuck up in the future, like I am human. But obviously that isn't an excuse for like all the shit that he's been wrapped up in at the minute. I feel like that video was definitely huge, the Soggy one, that started the chain reaction and like the different narrative. Yeah. And then obviously Oompaville's done that as well. I definitely feel like there's going to be a huge portion of the internet that will just hate him forever.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a divide.
These were probably people that never consumed his content in the first place, because I don't watch his videos, like genuinely. Like when I watch his videos, I just feel like it's TikTok auto scroll. It's just like constant fucking flashing lights and retention and stuff like that. Like, I don't like that kind of stuff. I'm an old man.
They're also going to hate him for all the reasons, like I said at the beginning of this podcast. You know, he's the biggest creator and he's known as like the nice guy, Mr. Charity. They're going to hate for that reason. That's the same reason they're not going to defend him either. I mean, he's not going to get a defense of any variety. Doesn't matter what you're saying, if what you're saying is true. Doesn't matter if you're disproving a lie. You're either going to be glazing him, you're sucking his cock, or you were paid off. Did you get accused of being paid off, Jay? I mean, you got accused of being a glazer, but did you get accused of being paid to say all that?
I did have a few comments being like, how much did MrBeast pay you? But hard to tell, you know, which ones were just a joke and which ones were like.
And people say that
serious.
So frequently, it's almost become like a meme.
They're going to say that on this video, by the way. But we should definitely call this podcast MrBeast is Innocent, and people will comment before they even watch it, being like, no, 100%. Blah, blah, blah. Despite us, you know, saying he's obviously guilty of a few things, they'll just be like, they'll just read the title and that'll be enough to set them off. So it's it'll be funny.
100%. I mean, it's been and still is so one-sided. Just commentators and YouTubers in general have been terrified to say anything in MrBeast's favor because of the response from that angry mob who are just jumping onto it. Yeah, with some exceptions, of course. I mean, it's important to name the exceptions. I think Nicholas Diorio, for example, has done a pretty good job. He's stuck to his guns throughout this whole thing.
He's been beefing with Rosanna Pansino so much.
Nick hates Dogpack. He hates Rosanna. So he's probably defending MrBeast because he hates those so much. Less so like he actually wants to be on MrBeast's side. But I'm sure he's been accused of being a MrBeast glazer. He's on the payroll, etc., etc. I mean, multiple times at this point.
Because I don't think I even follow him, but it kept coming up on my For You page. Like, people were saying that he's been compromised because MrBeast followed him. So they just, you know, assume MrBeast is just sliding him a nice little paycheck. Or anyone who says like Soggy Cereal, they still think he was paid because, you know, his flights were covered.
They paid for his flights. His flights. Yeah.
How recent ago was that follow? Do you know? Because that's one of the things that actually. Okay, because that was one of the things that set me off actually. Because when MrBeast reached out to me, he actually followed me, and he never did the entire time I had my Twitter account.
I think he did that to quite a few accounts.
And then I went through his follows, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I recognize some of these people. Yep, he's definitely got around messaging people it's over.
If you look at all of this and look at what MrBeast has said, because, you know, a lot of it is hearsay, a lot of, like, his excuses is kind of like he said versus someone else said.
I mean, most people are now saying, well, MrBeast is just a liar. So anything he's debunking, he's just a liar. It's like a blanket statement. They're not actually disproving anything he's saying. So it's kind of a useless opinion. So if you like, I mean, say what you want to say about Oompa. Did he do a good job? Doesn't really matter. Nobody in the comment section would have done a better job than him anyway. Not a single person, because they have nothing to back their opinion with. Some people were even trying to like review the body language of MrBeast, like they're an expert at this at like 14 years of age. Oh, he's smiling too much. He's got to be evil. Oh no, he's got his foot up on the table. He must be fucking Satan. Like it's just fucking retarded. There were so many comments like saying, MrBeast is lying, or MrBeast is this because he's got his fucking foot up on the table. Like this is supposed to mean something. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
No, not the foot. No, it shows you're guilty. It's like those people that do like body language readings, right? And it's like some of them make it so binary. It's like, oh my god, he looked to the left, he's thinking. He looked to the right, he's lying.
This is a tactic commonly known as the thinking pose. This means he's guilty. It's like, what?
Thinking pose.
It's like the psychology fucking breakdown thing. They were calling it like a MrBeast apology tour, but I was kind of confused because, you know, everyone was like, when is he going to respond? And then he responds, and they're just like, it's just a press-friendly apology tour. He's only doing this because it's good for him. It's like, huh? Like, what?
I mean, there weren't too many apologies in that interview. So what does he actually apologize for? No, he debunks most of it.
Yeah, what does he apologize for? I do think he did... He could have taken responsibility for more things than he did, so I wonder if there was some legal optics to it.
Should have showed some contrition in some areas. The biggest one I found was like this third-party law firm. I mean, I can't remember the name of it. Whatever the name of it was, it did find MrBeast innocent of, I want to say, like 90% of things. But they did conclude in that report that there were instances of harassment in MrBeast's business. But we still, to this day, do not know what those instances entailed. I mean, harassment, right? It's a huge word with really negative connotations for like 99% of people. But what was this harassment exactly? You know, what was it? Was it as bad as people would normally assume it was? I mean, and this is something that is not really covered in the interview. Oompaville should have pressed MrBeast on that, and he just didn't. Like, is it just a case of someone threw a paperclip at someone, or is it just like a full-on rape? I mean, obviously it's not the second one, but you know what I mean? Like, what was this harassment? If it's relatively minor, then I think MrBeast's response is fine. But if it's more major, then I think he needs to show a little bit more contrition, a little bit more sympathy, and should have made right on it. But we just don't know what those things are.
Yeah, I think the blanket
harassment means something far greater to me, something far more significant going on. But again, we just don't know. We don't know what it was.
I don't know if it was anything sexual, maybe just a bit of trolling in the workplace. Not sure.
Yeah, this massive law firm, and that's their consensus. There was just a little bit of trolling going on in the workplace, nothing more. But no, they used the term harassment, and that is a significant word to use. So there has to be, what did that entail? I mean, what did that entail? Exactly.
I was trying to think of like the weaker points of the interview, rather, because we're just going to be called the Beast Glazers, Colossal Is Crazy.
I really don't care. I think MrBeast did a pretty excellent job in the interview.
I think it was mostly the crypto stuff,
he's innocent of
right?
99%. Yeah, it's the crypto stuff. Again, I
Coffee
don't know
did
too
a
much about that
video.
stuff. But, he said in the interview, like, he's very much a simpleton when it comes to crypto. He's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. I do not believe that for a second. I think that is a genuine lie on MrBeast's part. If MrBeast lied about anything, it's about his involvement with crypto and the knowledge he has of it. I don't agree with it. I don't believe it.
Because Coffee brings up an old interview, and he's like, either MrBeast was lying here or he's lying now. And the old interview was, you know, him saying, I bought this NFT and then I moved it into this money and I bought this with that. You know, so he knew what he was talking about. So it's kind of like he's either lying back then, pretending he was the one buying when, you know, he says it was the fun buying, or he was buying it and then he's playing dumb now. I definitely don't know why he didn't just... even Coffee brought up, like, Oompa throws him a real soft, you know, like, a way to accept some sort of responsibility, and MrBeast is like, no, it was all the fun. You know, doesn't say any of part of it was bad on his part, which was kind of dumb. And then another point, which I don't know if Coffee mentioned, is I remember MrBeast before he blew up massively, is he would constantly be like, putting all his YouTube money into Bitcoin. So, he knew some things.
I think he knew a lot. I think he knows way more about crypto than the average person.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it wasn't honest. It came across to me very, very inauthentic.
At the same time, I can understand, knowing how to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and not knowing anything else that goes on. But he was trying to play it like he didn't even know how to do that. And I was like, nah.
Yeah.
How do I invest? What's the Bitcoin wallet? Was it?
I mean, so many people.
Numbers?
I mean, you're someone, Pyro, who invested, right? You bought Ethereum and sold, and like you didn't know, you didn't even know what it did. You're like, what's a blockchain? Like,
no, I didn't get it. I just wanted money, so I ended up doubling it, and then I waited to triple it, and I got greedy.
Can you
and went
tell
back
me
down to
anything
double.
about Ethereum? Other than that,
it was invented by some Russian guy, and it's the second biggest coin in the world. That's it.
Yeah, and that's it. That's that's the extent of the knowledge.
I mean, Dolan, you're probably the most knowledgeable out of the three of us when it comes to crypto. Nerd is no longer a member of this podcast, but he would have been, sadly not here. But maybe you can explain a little bit about that CoffeeZilla follow-up video, if you like. It wasn't on his main channel, it was on his second channel, right? What was the worst thing that MrBeast did in that regard?
It was the publicly saying the name of the coin. I think it was Super. Like, are you talking about Super? And then on the blockchain, there was proof that his wallet or the fund was selling Super at the exact same time. It was just blatant insider trading type thing. You pump and dump would be a better term. You tweet out saying Super's great. Well, he didn't do that exactly, but he still tweeted out Super. And then you're selling on followers and whoever else is buying because of your tweet. I think that was probably the worst one because that can technically be considered illegal.
Shall we look at the other claims that have been made against MrBeast that were discussed within this Oompaville interview? There were a lot of them, so I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them.
The most insane one that people are still going for was that Delaware one.
Shall I try and give like a brief context breakdown? I think most people will be aware of this story by now, but just in case. Let me try and remember off the top of my head. So one of the claims was that MrBeast called a sex offender Delaware because he was arrested in Delaware and therefore knew he was a sex offender when he was hired and started working for MrBeast. But this was proven to be untrue. His name was just Delaware, and this is seen because he was in a video working at Best Buy wearing a name tag that said Delaware. So MrBeast then admits to hiring Delaware at 19, a teenager at the time. He did keep saying the word teenager and kept nailing that home a few too many times, by the way. Trying to get that point across. I was a teenager. Yeah, you were 19.
He did admit
almost
fault,
20. Okay, we get it. Just say it
like,
once, MrBeast. Just say it once. This was when he was just hiring like a few friends and his mother to run his channel, his business. But the channel was getting bigger and bigger. He needed help. And he admits he probably should have gone through the proper channels, hired the professionals right then and there. But due to his experience and age, 19 years old, by the way, he walked into his local Best Buy and just hired multiple people from Best Buy. And one of these people turned out to be this guy, Delaware. And he did not know he was a registered sex offender. He did not check to see if he was or he wasn't. That was a good point that should have been pointed out, actually, in MrBeast's defense. And this is what MrBeast should have actually interrupted with or said. If MrBeast had known at the time what a background check actually was, and he says he didn't, then this man was employed by Best Buy.
Yeah.
And so if a huge company like Best Buy seemingly had no problem employing a registered sex offender and more than likely, let's face it, did a background check, then why should MrBeast be held to as high a standard as Best Buy at 19 years of age?
I think Soggy made that point. Yeah, and then the other thing, but once that was cleared up, that because, it was already a ridiculous claim that his nickname was because he was a sex offender. Who would hang out with this guy? But anyway, the next claim was then from Jake the Viking, who is the brother-in-law to this guy and defending him. So, he's already not a good, reliable narrator because he's the brother-in-law and he's defending a sex offender. But he said that MrBeast sat down with the pedo, can't remember his name, Delaware, and MrBeast's mum. And Jake the Viking says that MrBeast was told and then continued on with it. And then obviously Mr. Beast refute was like his mum would have clearly not allowed that.
That's right.
Once those two things are cleared up, people are still hounding it. I've had it in my comments a bit that it's like, why did Delaware then appear in Mr. Beast videos with a mask on?
Yeah, that was another thing as well, with just no proof. It's not that Carl Jacobs stuff.
And they used it to be like, this shows that Jimmy was intentionally covering up his identity because he was a sex offender. And it's like, there's so many fucking reasons he could have had a mask on. There's so many. It's just, yeah, it was, and people are using that as a big point. But yeah, I think that whole thing is a wash. There are things, again, Mr. Beast has definitely done shady stuff, but that was just like, God.
What was there was a rumor floating around that Delaware sat down Pedo, let's just call him Pedo sat down Mr. Beast and his mother and told them he was a registered sex offender, literally told them.
So that's what Jake the Viking said.
Yeah, and Mr. Beast actually fucked up in the interview here. And he says, I don't remember that happening, which is not the best thing to say.
Yeah, no,
I mean, it's saved a little bit in the next sentence he says, where he clarifies that his mother claims that she would have shut down the business before she allowed her teenage son to hire a registered sex offender. But yeah, that was not the best sentence to use there.
I thought Mr. Beast was kind of in the clear there. I thought it was something really stupid that he did, irresponsible. But again, he was literally 19.
Yeah.
I don't really see it's just obvious that he didn't know that the guy was a sex offender and was protecting him, which a lot of people were just spinning it in the worst way possible. But yeah, I feel like it's one of those where Soggy actually did a better job defending himself than Mr. Beast actually did himself, because what you just said there, the way he worded at the end, it was just that kind of diminished responsibility kind of thing.
True, on that particular point, I think Mr. Beast did not do the best job. I don't remember this happening, where we had this conversation with a pedophile, is saved a little bit by his mother, and then he just sums up the whole thing as quite unfortunate that I did hire a pedophile into my company.
I mean, I think that was my whole takeaway from the entire thing, was there wasn't enough accountability. Again, with the crypto thing, it was always the fund's fault. There wasn't I did make a mistake, I shouldn't have done that. It was kind of a little too safe, a little too dodgy.
Yeah, I understand the reasons why, but yes, again, it does come across a little inauthentic. I think the main problem was there was not very much emotion there.
He did have a lot of emotion when asked about Dogpack. You could tell he was pissed off. That was one of the times he did speak over Oompa. I can't remember the specifics, but he was no, Dogpack did this. I was allowed to say this. He was. I mean, he has every right to be pissed off at him. But that was the one thing I picked up
speaking about Dogpack, actually, you reminded me in the video, because when Oompa asks him, and it's obviously used as trailer bait for the video, it's are you going to sue him? And the answer he gives, to me personally, was really it was definitely thought out. It's I'm going to sue him, not because I want to, but because I feel like I have to, because he's been lying so much about me. And the way that I read that, I don't know how you guys read it, maybe I'm totally off here, but it was almost he was trying to psyop Dogpack a little bit there, threaten him, almost as if going to give Dogpack a way out. If Dogpack basically just comes to Jimmy just groveling and then he deletes all the videos, then there's no need for the lawsuit. He'll just keep on going.
I did not get that impression at all, honestly, but I mean, you might be right, Pyro. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just did not personally get that impression.
In my head, the way that I read it was to him, a bigger win is Dogpack admitting fault to him and then deleting everything. Because even if he took Dogpack to court and just buried him under legal fees and stuff like that, he will still definitely be crying on Twitter saying Mr. Beast silenced me, Mr. Beast silenced me.
Well, and no, that's not if he lost, he would not be able to legally do that.
Well,
he's not allowed to. If he loses, he's not allowed to even reference it at all.
Well, if one of the stipulations in the lawsuit, and Mr. Beast requests this, that Dogpack is not allowed to speak on or continue any kind of disinformation, then obviously Dogpack will be under legal contract to not be able to do that. So that's possible. It is possible, yeah. If Mr. Beast does sue Dogpack, Mr. Beast will win. There is no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
I think even Mr. Beast says it'll be the easiest
lawsuit
lawsuit
he would
ever.
say that.
And I do agree. He can prove disinformation, he can prove slander, he can prove lies, and he can prove also that this financially affected his company in a negative light. So this is an easy win. 100%. But what does he actually take Dogpack for? Because he can't recoup any of the money from his charity or whatever have you. What's he going to gain financially? Nothing. So effectively, it's just going to be like a social win.
Yeah, and also if there's a stipulation about silencing him and stopping him from spreading anything else, plus deleting the videos, is still a good thing. But
I have absolutely no problem when it comes to censorship when it's attempting to take down lies, slander, disinformation. I do not see that as a problem at all. If you're trying to take down like an opinion, criticism, then obviously, yeah, that's bad. But this is not the case here. I'm sorry. This is absolutely not the case here. This is trying to like take down genuine slander, genuine lies, proven disinformation. This is 100% fair. Absolutely should happen ethically and legally.
yeah, I was going to say, like, if he had some sort of agreement where, you know, he doesn't take it legal and then Dogpack deletes all the videos, there's nothing stopping him from coming back, you know, Dogpack coming back. But if he goes the legal route, then it probably will have to happen. So
I feel like MrBeast is going to do it anyway, regardless. I genuinely think this lawsuit will happen. This negative response to MrBeast in general, the damage that this has caused him.
oh, it's ruined.
Like there is it's kind of irreparable damage, I think.
Yep,
Even though
100%.
he's disproving like 99% of it, it's still like irreparable damage. If suddenly the outcome was that MrBeast is fine, nobody has this negative opinion anymore, or very few people have it, and like everything continues as it was like a year ago, then I think MrBeast would drop the lawsuit and he'd be like, yeah, fine. No harm, no foul, who cares, let's move on. But that is not going to happen. In fact, even despite disproving a lot of these things, I think it's going to get even worse. The attention, the money, there's just too much of it. That is going to continue 100%.
No, people's opinions on MrBeast have been changed for good. And even if he debunks it all, they'll still think he's untrustworthy. Some people will.
Yeah, the damage is done, and the damage is massive. Massive. That's why I'm kind of pissed off, because it's just stemmed from lies. Yes, there are things that MrBeast did that were wrong. Yes, he should have responded earlier. Yes, he still should make a video response. Yes, all these things. But it's so unfair and ridiculous. And considering I genuinely believe like MrBeast is a force for good. People are going to call me a glazer. I'm on the payroll. Whatever. I really don't give a shit. I genuinely don't give a fuck. I have something critical to say about everyone. Even my friends, Pyro will attest to this. I'm always at him. But if there is one source for good as a YouTuber on the platform, I genuinely do believe it is MrBeast. I think he's done some incredible things, like inspiring things. I think he's going to continue to do that. Yes, he makes a lot of money at it, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I genuinely don't care. I'm glazing him. I suck in his fucking cock. I couldn't give a shit. If there's one person to support, I genuinely feel like it's MrBeast. 100% all the way.
On an unrelated note, today's sponsor is Feastables. Can you imagine?
Nerd and I already were sponsored by MrBeast Burger, so we've got the bias there already.
Oh, you're already compromised.
You paid us X amount.
You're already paid off. Yeah, it's over.
We already got a sponsor from MrBeast. We were the only YouTubers he's ever directly sponsored in that regard.
That's so funny. Just sponsored by MrBeast. Was that back before he had products? So it was just like, this is sponsored by MrBeast, just like the person. Like today's sponsor's just the guy. Check him out. Oh no, he had Beast Burgers, didn't he, back then?
Beast Burgers, now it's Feastables and Lunchly, of course. By the way, we forgot to mention the direct censorship coming from fucking Reddit, the fucking worst website in existence. And then you got probably the most disingenuous subreddit on that worst fucking website in existence, r/YouTube drama. What a bunch of fucking worms. If there was a single, I don't care. If there was a single post made there that went against the grain of popular opinion that said anything other than MrBeast is bad, they would either suppress it or just outright delete it. There is actual physical fucking evidence of this. Is genius. When the Best Buy video began to gain traction, which proved that Delaware was in fact the actual name of the sex offender and not in fact what employees have been calling him because he'd been arrested in Delaware, the mods on that subreddit just outright removed any trace of it. I mean, that is fucked.
Did they probably used the excuse like put it in the mega thread, you know, like because they would have made a mega thread for the...
Yeah, fuck off. We all know what you were doing. It's obvious and transparent. Yeah. They have a clear agenda, clear bias. It's so fucking obvious.
Whenever I checked out the subreddit, it would be like, before the Soggy video, there'd be like 4 separate posts all mentioning MrBeast somehow. That wasn't deleted. That wasn't put in a mega thread. So,
they
there was
did not like
definitely
Oompaville's
bias
video.
going down there.
I knew they'd be the first group to instantly shit on Oompaville's interview, and yeah, lo and behold, when I checked out the subreddit, just saying he was cowardly, wasn't pushing enough. I think I agree with some of the things they were saying with the no pushback, which we've talked about earlier, but yeah, the way that they word it, like, just Oompaville is like the worst YouTuber ever invented.
Oh, did you see Oompaville went into the comments on there? And probably,
I don't know why he did that, man. Like, he's just asking to get down.
Did you see that, Colossal?
I did see that he replied and then instantly regretted it and then did a meme to like counteract.
Yeah, you
mistake he
can't
made.
win.
I was going to say,
you can't deal with those people in any capacity.
Oh no, I've tried doing it on my subreddit, like my own subreddit, because
they downvote you no matter what you say if they're angry.
Nerd has done it. I mean, it's just so stupid. I mean, Nerd has done it in a massive capacity.
I've only done it once and then I gave up. Like, Nerd was literally doing it like
How many downvotes
every
did
week.
you get?
I got like -70 or something. It was something about like the quality of my content being shit or something like that. It's so bizarre. It's like on the main channel we put out the long form videos, and then on the second channel as well, I'm stopping doing slap for a little bit now and trying some like quote unquote higher quality stuff. But then like the subreddit, they don't care, and then they will pull up me uploading a MrBeast reaction video on my third channel, the Pyro TV, which is just a stream highlight channel. And it literally is just like, you cannot fucking win with those circle jerks. It's crazy. It's like you'll literally kneel and then say, okay, I'm going to change the content. I'm going to make it higher quality. No one cares, even though they've begged for it for ages. And then, they'll just still pick apart anything else that they can because they know it gets updates.
Yeah, those people are worthless sludge. They're slime.
Sludge.
I have I fucking can't stand these people. I just laugh at them. Just fat little piggies. I mean, they've never said anything about me as far as I know. I just don't care. They're such slime. They're worthless gutter rats. Mud people.
The top posts on that subreddit every day is usually the same, like 5 or 6 people.
Yeah, just mentally ill fuckwits jerking each other off with their shitty little opinions and their zero credibility. Just dirt. These people are dirt.
You're gonna be enemy number 1 now.
I'm waiting for it. I'm glad for it. I mean, I don't 100% believe this, but like anyone they go against, I'm like automatically on their side. Straight off the bat.
Just out of spite. They could actually be like
Just Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, it's like Chris Tyson, for example. They're pretty heavy against Chris Tyson, right? I've seen some screenshots of what people have been saying there about Chris Tyson. Like, obviously, we said on this podcast that Chris Tyson is pedo 100%. So we would technically agree with them on that. But I'm like, fuck it. I'm inviting Chris Tyson down to my basement now to come play with the kids.
I actually
purely because r/YouTube fucking drama don't like Chris Tyson. Chris Tyson is an alright guy in my book now. Well, that was one thing that was not mentioned in the interview in like pretty much any capacity, really, was any of this Chris Tyson involvement. The Shadman poster on the wall.
The shed-based thing was brought up, but that was about it, right? It didn't really delve any deeper.
Yeah, it should have done. It should have done. Well, we can kind of do it now. Well, let's talk about the poster, I guess. So there was a Shadman poster up on the wall. I still have not seen what this poster actually entailed. Probably a good thing that I don't.
Yeah, you don't.
If it's genuinely a depiction of a child. Jay, you've seen it, right? Because you're a little bit of a pedo, so you've seen it. But can you kind of describe like what this poster entailed?
I don't have a photographic memory.
Just a bit of a little
You've
bit
saved
of a pedo.
it. Let
me look at my desktop background. It was like the anime. What do they call it? Lolly, with a gun in their mouth, like edgelord. But
was it clearly a child? Was it clearly a child?
It's a 300-year-old tree spirit. No,
I don't want to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it was.
Just from your memory, was it clearly a child in your opinion?
I'm pretty sure it was blatantly a child, or at least if you looked at it close enough.
So if MrBeast saw that along with the other anime posters on the wall, would he automatically assume that it was a child, would you say?
Maybe. But I didn't think his excuse for that was that bad. I could buy. He sees a weird thing on the wall. He doesn't really think. He's like, oh, that's kind of weird. But, didn't think it was lewd. Didn't know it was made by the pedo artist guy.
Yeah. Well, he said he didn't know who Shadman was before this, so...
He didn't? Or he did?
He didn't. He didn't know who he was. But yeah, had never heard of Shabman before this came up. I only heard of Shabman because he drew fucking naked pictures. Well, they weren't naked, but he drew lewd pictures of Keemstar's daughter, and I called him out. We've discussed this before on the podcast, but at that time, it was only Keemstar and I were the only two people who called Shabman out for his fucking weird pedo shit. Do we want to go into some more allegations that MrBeast debunked or didn't debunk, or that were mentioned in this Oompaville interview?
I was just trying to think
so many, but we've been going for a while now, so
I'm trying to think of the big ones, but I mean,
the Delaware thing, I think he covered pretty well.
Yeah, we've covered that. We've covered that already.
Yeah, the Jake stuff we've already talked about as well. I don't think the coverage on that was too ideal.
Yeah,
I think I'm trying to think of a weak point that he made apart from those, but a lot of it just kind of all runs into each other. I mean, there was the one about having more women or like employees in that one video.
It's kind of irrelevant, right?
Lack of diversity allegations, basically. I mean, they were just completely untrue and baseless. I think MrBeast said 70% of people actively working on Feastables are women, not in his company, but just directly on Feastables are women. And so nobody who accused MrBeast of this had any data to back up their claims. They just said it. I mean, it's based on absolutely nothing. It's just a kind of nothing burger. It's a MrBeast burger.
It's a MrBeast burger.
He cleared up the claims his charity stuff was fake. You know, a few of that was running around, like the philanthropy and the fake CGI. And there was like the blind people, where like 30 people, a company wasn't paid for like 30 of the operations they did, but then that turned out to be not Beast's fault, and then they paid them anyway as soon as they found out about it.
Off camera, I think that they actually did an additional 800 surgeries to help people see again. So it's a combined total of 1,800 people instead of just 1,000. And 30 of those surgeries were claimed to not be paid for due to a misunderstanding. So if MrBeast did 970 surgeries, why would he intentionally not pay for 30 of them?
Yeah,
Plus, there were the 800 surgeries off camera that MrBeast never even publicly said he did. More fucking lies and slander from Dogpack there.
Yeah, I remember like when it all kicked off with Dogpack, everyone was like, oh my god, this guy's like a whistleblower. But like, it's crazy how he lost so much respect so quickly. What was the first biggest fumble that you made again?
Well, it was the Dogpack video dropped like a week after the Chris Tyson stuff happened. So it was just like perfect time to strike, right? Like if the Ava Tyson, Chris Tyson stuff wasn't happening, Dogpack's video probably would have been met with a lot of like, do you have proof for this? Are you sure? But because it was already, the tide was already turning on MrBeast, it was just kind of taken at face value and accepted like everything he said was true.
I think overall this isn't really going to change the narrative that much, though. I think people that still hate him are going to continue to hate him.
Because there was always a blatant divide before it all happened on Twitter. You know, people shitting on MrBeast for being rich and, you know, his eyes. There's no soul behind his eyes, they would say. So I think there's definitely going to be way more of a divide now. You know, you could post something positive about MrBeast. Half the replies will probably be like, isn't that the guy that did X, Y, and Z? I don't think it will get worse, though. I think it'll get a little better for him. Because even though, you know, he did address pretty much everything when Oompa basically asked everything, regardless of his, you know, regardless of how he addressed it, not being up to scratch in some parts. He has covered it all, so it's kind of like, I don't know what else.
I think they're just going to pick apart everything now. Everything that he does. I mean, there's too much money in it. There's too much relevancy in it. There's too much attention in it. I think it's going to continue for the foreseeable future. I think the more popular MrBeast gets, the more good he does, the more he achieves, the more money he makes. I think it's just going to snowball effect and just continue all the way down the line. I think the best thing MrBeast can do going forward is what he's said he's already going to do, which is be more transparent.
I've noticed that like Twitter drones and just rentoids in general, they almost have like a little book of like everything you've done that's bad. So if he gets brought up in the news again for whatever reason, you know, all the quote tweets will be, hey, isn't this the guy who did X?
100%. 100%. It's done irrevocable damage. As long as the narrative remains that anyone who does defend MrBeast is just a glazer, is paid off or on the payroll or anything like that, I think it's just such a safe opinion to have that MrBeast is a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's paid me $10 million for this defense. I took the money. I thought it was worth it.
Me and Pyro got less because we we weren't as glazy, but we're still getting a
you weren't
nice
as
sum.
glazy.
We're still getting a nice sum. Someone will believe that too. Colossal got money. I got a life supply of Feastables, and Pyro got a year worth of Beast Burger. Actually, does he even still do Beast Burger? Well, anyway.
I'm not sure, to be honest. But yeah, that's the video. Mr. Beast, innocent of like 99.9% of things.
I don't know if it was that much.
It's probably not. It's probably like 95%.
Accurate.
Let's say 9 out of 10 things. He's innocent of the most serious things, and there are a few things that he's genuinely guilty of. We haven't compared him to other YouTubers. We haven't tried to say, oh, well, look how much good he's done for the world. This negates his bad stuff he's done.
You did say that just
one's
at the
making
end.
that point. Not as a basis for
like
disregarding
it's an
the bad
eraser.
things he's done. Yeah, exactly. That's not
For every
it doesn't-
$1 million
the
he
good, the
donates-
good does not wash out the bad, basically,
You
right?
can kill one
so
child
nobody's making
for
that
every $1
point.
million
That's not
he
the
donates.
argument. That's not true. That's not what we're saying. That's not what I'm saying. He will deserve critical videos on him in the future, I'm sure, no doubt. What he doesn't deserve are these false accusations, disinformation, slander, lies, sexual deviance, assault allegations, etc., etc. It's fucking nonsense. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Guilty by association, Chris Tyson. We get it. He's a pedo. Mr. B shouldn't have defended him.
Do you think a coffee interview would do him good? Well, probably not.
Yeah.
But if he owns up to what was bad and he didn't do anything illegal and admits he made mistakes and shit, it's kind of like, well, then it's either you keep disliking him or you're like, okay, I can respect that. So
I think Mr. Beast is kind of in the headspace now where nothing I do, nothing I say, no matter who I do an interview with, even if I make a video on my own channel, this narrative is just going to continue to run. Even if I can nail the interview. And like I said, I felt he did a perfectly acceptable job in that interview. He debunked most of the stuff. There have been supporting videos on his behalf, the Soggy video, etc. This is always going to remain the narrative. It's going to snowball. There's always going to be a negative opinion now going forward. People are going to make stuff up, continue to make stuff up. There's too much money to be had. I've said all this stuff. I'm just regurgitating it at this point. But if I'm Mr. Beast, I'm like, fuck it. Well, what's the point then? You know, what's the point?
Do you think it's over now? Like, it's actually over? It's so
In what
over.
The
sense?
end?
In what
Oh,
sense?
he's done?
Well, I just wanted to say it's over, but I feel like the drama thing has kind of ran its course now. There's really not that much else to say. I don't think you understand how little people care in the grand scheme because, you know, everyone now is like, everyone has attention deficit, like how fast the news cycle is, how everything's gravitated towards short form content. I genuinely, like, I was saying this to my chat when I was watching Oompaville's video. I was just like, okay, like being genuine here, like this is nothing against Oompaville, but like, is anyone else just really bored of this now?
I think a lot
Just
of
like
people
covering
are sick
all
of
this.
it.
I think it's really ran its course. Like, people are just getting fatigued. And I know there'll be some people listening to this being like, that's exactly what Jimmy wants. He wants people to get bored and move on. But that is literally how, like, these news cycles work. Like, everyone shits on someone for, like, a good month.
As long as those videos no longer get any views, then it'll stop. That's when it'll stop. And not fucking before.
But I do think it'll fade out quite a bit because he has responded. There is still the crypto elephant in the room, which is, you know, probably the biggest blemish on the whole thing now. But that, you know, that'll be a stain unless he addresses it. But I think it will just kind of run its course now.
Speaking of being paid, subscribe today to our Patreon. Just $5 a month, well worth your time and money. We just the other day released a Patreon exclusive episode where we had
Biggest
a bunch
mistake.
of our patrons on.
Biggest mistake ever.
I enjoyed it. I had fun at least. It was fun to do.
One person was like, I waited 3 weeks for the Patreon exclusive episode and it's your autistic fans talking for an hour.
Oh, I don't care if they enjoyed it or not. Of very little concern to me. I genuinely enjoyed being in this call and berating and bullying them. That's what I do. That's what I enjoy doing. It made a change from all the glazing, you know? So
Colossal Is Crazy is actually going to be I should beat them to it. I'll comment it and be the top comment.
yeah. We'll pin it.
If you want to be a glazer, $20.
$20. To glaze Colossal Is Crazy, Pyrocynical.
You should just change
and
the
Dolan
role to
Fuck.
glazer. Just change it to glazer.
Well, I've made a new role now for one person who's going to pay $450 a month now. Just to ban 3 people per month or 2 people per month. which is what he wants. So he's basically paying $450 to be a glorified moderator of the server. And we're taking his money. No problem in that. Just like we took Mr. Beast's money. We have no ethical concerns.